Why speaking a language only is not enough. Miscommunication. Welcome. The jazz of psychology brings you another dose of psychology, an everyday life mixed with a twist in language, knowing versus speaking. The thing with languages, they are not the same words only, they are a different culture, customs, people, mindset. It is not enough to speak a language to be able to communicate with people in the truest sense. A person can speak 40 languages. It won't mean much if all they are able to express is their own perspective only. Except that knowing 40 languages is majorly impressive. But, back to the point. To truly understand a language, a person must learn about the culture and about the people too. How they think, what they believe, and the reasons why. This includes local references, proverbs, or even music and cinema. For a person to be able to understand those cultural differences, they need to be able to understand the roots, the source, of where those differences come from. Luckily for you, psychology can be quite handy here. Quick side note, cultural differences are not limited to cultures and countries alone. You'll see why soon. Some of you might have heard these before. People from there are so cold. Or in that country the people are. Here's the thing, it's not the people. It's the mindset. Each country has its own traditions, clothing style and cuisine. Each country also has its own mindset that has formed over the generations of people living in a certain area, in a certain way. Each country has a default mindset, as a baseline for the country. Certain areas of the world might share similarities between their mindsets, because of the proximity of having lived next to each other for centuries. Like Asia, or South America, for instance. The countries share a continent, region of the world. Languages spoken are similar, if not the same at times. The cultures share similarities, even people can share physical traits and features. Yet each country has differences that make them stand out from the crowd that they are proud of. Usually, that is. Don't want to exaggerate anything. That's why sometimes people might get angry when someone mixes two countries up. Those who travel a lot probably have experienced it, if not personally then know someone who has. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. Language is used to communicate between people. To do it effectively, they need to understand the item, topic they want to talk about. Or at least be willing to learn about it. However, to do it successfully, a person must have the right mindset first. The same principle applies to translations. How, you ask? Simple. It is not enough to simply translate word from word, language to language. Not even gonna touch the grammar part. That's not the point now. The point is that to effectively make a translation, the person has to have a good understanding of the language, obviously. But to truly make a great translation, an understanding of the culture of the language is just as important. Not to mention to have a good grasp of the topic that needs translating, in the first place, should there be one, of course. Why is that last part important? Because each language has its own slang and references that people of different cultures or even ages understand. It helps to make translations, communication in general, relatable. People are prone to feelings of familiarity. So, to make it happen, sometimes people need to translate heavy subjects into easy to understand ones, and by using the right toolkit they are able to achieve that. It's one thing to translate a paper on space travel for rocket scientists, and it's a completely different story to translate one for common people, who share nothing in common with space travel. The same can be said about people of different ages. Like boomers, millennials and Gen Z. It's not the age that is the problem, but the mindset behind each age category. Age, too, can be considered a cultural difference. Don't see it? Think of it this way. Each group grew up in a different time, culture, listening to different music, reading different books, watching different movies. But someone who is in their mid-teens now and listens to millennial, boomer-level music, will probably have a better chance understanding the references from the lyrics when someone uses them. Even though that person is growing up now and not then. Why would a 15-year-old listen to AC/DC instead of Nicki Minaj? Who knows, just saying. Anyhow, back to the point. When it comes to language, It can happen sometimes that certain phrases are not translatable into other languages, because the other languages do not have the right mindset to be able to express that specific phrase, or rather, that specific mindset. In order to be able to translate that essence, a person must understand what it means and find an analogy for it in the other language, to be able to make the translation as accurate as possible, without losing that essence. Hence why culture, references and insight into the topic are, or at least can be, equally important. To be honest, we don't need to discuss foreign languages. Everyone knows the feeling of miscommunication. The only sad difference is, it makes more sense with a foreign language, because it's new, in progress, or out of practice. However, miscommunication happens in everyday life more than often, unfortunately, even when people do speak the same language and culture, and are of the same age, too. Miscommunication happens not because of not speaking the same words, but because the same words are understood differently. The problem lies with perception, which is based on psychology. In other words, it's not the people who are communicating with each other, but the mindsets. Psychology helps to understand the meaning of the words for each mindset that speaks them. By reshaping the words into acceptable ones for the certain mindset, a person can increase their chances of communicating successfully, because it allows for the mindset to understand the person in their vocabulary. Like so, instead of trying to prove a point to the person B, by explaining in the terms of the person A, why not explain it in the words of person B from the start? When the mindsets share enough similarities, they are able to communicate effectively. It is when the differences are too great that miscommunication happens, regardless of the words and language spoken. You have reached the end of this post. Thanks for listening, stay tuned for more, and always remember, mental health is important. Take care.